Hello, everyone. Welcome to everyone who has joined us online today. All participants have been placed in listen-only mode, so your microphone is muted. It is currently 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but we will give everyone just about 30 more seconds to join and then get started. We're excited to have you today. Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Wilmac's Guide to Legacy Voice Archive Management. We're so glad that you are able to join us today as we discuss Legacy Voice Archive Management, what it is, what it means, and what it can do for you. Now, I have a few notes to go over before we get started. All participants have been placed in listen-only mode with your microphone muted. This webinar is being recorded, so it will be available to watch on demand afterwards. Please participate. Ask questions throughout the webinar by submitting them in the chat window. We'll review them at the end of the discussion. Now, we do have a large audience today, so in case we can't get to your question, we'll be sure to follow up with you individually. And then just a quick request that after you leave the webinar, you answer the survey questions that pop up on your screen. There's just 3 of them. It'll take less than a minute. We thank you in advance. Now, we're very excited that you tuned in. Voice archive management can be an intimidating and a confusing topic if your organization has never had to deal directly with it. So we're here to inform you on what legacy voice archive management is and how Wilmac's expertise and offerings in this space have solved many companies' voice archive management needs. I also wanted to mention that this webinar is the final installment of Wilmac's voice archive management series that can be found on our blog page. So if you haven't checked that out yet, I highly recommend that you do. So before I go through our agenda, I'm just going to introduce myself and our host. I'm Emily Miller. I'm Wilmac's Marketing Support Specialist. I'll be moderating the webinar today. And with us, we have Mark Huber. Welcome, Mark. He's Wilmac's Manager of Pre-Sales Support, and he's a 22-year industry veteran. Now, Mark has witnessed the ins and outs of voice management, so he's a great resource on the topic. He'll be our main host today. Now I'll go into the agenda. So here's a quick overview of what we'll be discussing. We'll run through the essay installments of the series written by our Wilmac experts, like I mentioned before, that can be found on our blog page. We'll then transition into the main portion of the webinar, where I'll be asking Mark situational questions regarding our legacy voice extraction services and the continuity replay solution. And the last portion of the webinar will be reserved for your questions, so make sure to record them in the chat on your screen at any time. I will now turn it over to Mark.
All right, thanks, Emily. So let's start with a quick review of our series of the 3 essays that led up to today's presentation. The first essay is Legacy Voice Extraction. Here we talk about a common scenario where you have a call recording system which has been serving you well for many years. It's been reliably capturing and storing voice calls, and it provides you with a convenient user interface to access and replay those calls. But now it's at the end of its life cycle, and it's time for it to be retired and replaced, and you may be replacing it with a system from a different vendor. So this should be fairly routine, right? Your IT folks migrate data from old systems to new ones all the time, but you run into an unexpected problem. The voice files and the associated metadata are in a proprietary format, and there doesn't seem to be any way to do a bulk export. So you call your vendor for help, and they give you a quote, which is much more expensive than you were expecting, leaving you feeling like your data is stuck in this old system. So here's where Wilmac can help you. Our engineers have decades of experience behind them and have the know-how to get your data out of that old system and convert it into an open standard format so you can keep your data and get rid of that old system. We put you back in control of your data without draining your budget. In our second essay, Continuity Replay, we introduce a tool that goes hand in hand with legacy voice extraction services. Once your voice files have been extracted and converted, what happens next? Many organizations have to comply with regulatory requirements and retain voice recordings for many years, and you still need a way to search and replay. So this is where Continuity Replay comes in. It's a browser-based application that gives you the same search capabilities as you had in your old system, but with a modern application. It's simple enough that many of our customers start using it right out of the box with little or no end user training. Most importantly, Continuity Replay doesn't lock up your data in a proprietary format, so you stay in control, and we provide all the tools you need to manage that data for years to come, including important features like bulk export, retention purging, and litigation hold. It has the scalability to handle the largest voice repositories and can access multiple voice repositories, even if they came from systems made by different vendors. Our third essay takes a look at Continuity Automated. Here, we explore a different kind of situation, but with a similar problem. Many organizations recognize that there's a great deal of value to be found in the voice of their customers. There's speech analytics systems out there, and they can help you get insights from those calls, but you run into the problem of those proprietary voice files. Your recorder vendor might offer an analytics solution, but what if theirs isn't quite what you're looking for? There's many third-party analytics tools out there, but they often can't analyze the proprietary voice files. So you might feel stuck paying top dollar for an analytics system that isn't quite right for you. So Wilmac can do an extraction for you, but in this situation, a one-time extraction really won't do. What you need is to continuously analyze the calls as they're coming in. So this is just what Continuity Automated was designed for. It puts you back in control with its unique capability of automatically converting those voice files as they happen and delivering them to the third-party speech analytics system of your choice. It's scalable to fit any size environment, and it can be deployed on-premise, in your private cloud, or as a service.
Great. Thanks for that overview, Mark. And again, if you haven't read the full essay posts, they can be found on Wilmac's blog page. So now we're going to move into the main part of the webinar. That'll be a Q&A format. I wanted to mention that this section will focus primarily on the legacy voice extraction services and our continuity replay solution. We'll use the real-life situations that we've faced in the voice management space to address common questions and pain points. Now, the third essay topic on Continuity Automated will be touched on in a future webinar. And I'm going to ask our attendees a poll question right now to gauge your interest in Continuity Automated. And as a reminder, this solution automatically converts your voice files as they happen and delivers them to the third-party analytics system of your choice. So you aren't restricted to your vendor's analytics solution and the proprietary file format that your data is in. So I will launch that poll question now. So it'll be up on your page. I'll give about 20 seconds for you guys to vote and answer. Okay, awesome, got a lot of answers coming in. Okay, and if I didn't mention before, the poll question reads, would you be interested in learning more about Continuity Automated? All right, and I'll close that now. Thank you all for your input. All right, so moving into our situational discussion questions. Question 1. Oftentimes, regulatory agencies demand large volumes of call recordings within a very short time span. How do we get access to and deliver all those audio files, Mark?
Yeah, the demands of regulators are sometimes surprising. We often see really short lead times to turn over a large volume of voice files. And the regulators expect those files in an open standard format, so those proprietary file formats won't do. So at Wilmac, our engineers have a deep understanding of audio file encoding, and we can transcode virtually any format from into one that the regulators will accept. And we also know how to scale up a project to get it done on time within those short time spans so that you can avoid any fines for non-compliance. We can even offer transcription services in these situations too, turning voice files into readable, searchable text so that you can quickly locate exactly what you're looking for. Now, here's an example of a project that we did for a global investment bank. They were approached by the Department of Justice and they were instructed to produce all recordings from 2 of their traders for a 6-year period, and they were instructed to turn them over in a month or face fines and other penalties. This came out to about 200,000 recordings, but they needed to be located from within all the recordings on their trading floor, which was a total of about 100 million recordings. To compound the complexity of that request, some of the recordings were stored on magnetic tapes and DVDs. There were actually almost 500 pieces of media to go through to find all of these recordings. So Wilmac's solution was to build a multi-server system. We calculated the amount of processing power and media drives that we needed in order to comb through this vast amount of data and media and locate the necessary recordings within the time frame that was allotted. We were able to get this job completed, and the required audio was delivered to the Department of Justice with a few days to spare.
Wow, that's a really big ask, and it really shows that Wilmac has the ability to adapt to an organization's unique circumstances. Moving on to our second question. So question 2, suppose an energy company is moving off their voice recording platform into an all-in-one cloud solution that includes voice recording. Is there a way to get all of the recordings out of the old system transferred into the new cloud system?
Yeah, this is a common scenario that we're seeing out in the field. First of all, our customers tell us that it's not only costly to maintain these old recording systems, but there's a real security risk to keeping old operating systems running on their networks. So with our legacy extraction service, we can get your data out and get those old systems off of your network. As for bringing the data into your new system, we've worked with vendors and cloud vendors in particular who do have a way to bring voice files into their systems. Of course, every system out there stores data differently, so it does take some expertise to get the data from the old system reformatted to a format that the new system can ingest. There's no two projects alike, and that's why Wilmac's people are going to be part of every extraction solution that we offer. We're not just selling you a tool that you have to go out there and figure out on your own. We provide our experience and our expertise as part of the package. So here's a project that we did for a global energy company. They had an initiative to move all of their call recording across their global enterprise into the cloud, and they wanted to move the recordings from all their existing on-premise systems up to the cloud storage as well. It turned out they had 9 different recording systems from different vendors. In addition, some of these systems were storing recordings in older EMC Centera storage systems, and these were also being decommissioned, and that presented its own challenges with the way that Centera stores files. In total, there were over 400 million audio files to be converted and transferred, and it comprised about 120 terabytes of storage. So first, Wilmac extracted the audio files from all 9 systems, including those that were warehoused in Centera, and we extracted the associated metadata, and we converted everything into a common open format that their cloud storage solution could ingest. At this point, we were also challenged with how do we get such a large volume of data, 120 terabytes, uploaded into the cloud? Our calculation showed that if we used traditional methods of uploading, it would take years to upload the data into the cloud. So what we found we could do is we could get that data transferred using secure data boxes and shipping them to the cloud vendor. Once the data was transferred into the cloud, their new cloud application was able to successfully ingest all of that data. Finally, with all the data securely stored in there, they were able to decommission all of their old recording systems. This project saved them a substantial amount of money in the maintenance costs for those legacy systems, and it removed the security risks of keeping those old operating systems running on their networks.
Gotcha. Now, moving into the cloud has been such a hot topic lately, so I'm glad that we're able to adapt to both the cloud and the on-prem environments. But I'm going to change gears now and go into a retention question. So question 3, suppose an organization is upgrading their voice recording solution and has a retention period of 10 years. What's the easiest way to maintain these calls?
10 years sure is a long time in the technology space, but it's actually not an unusual requirement. I mean, after all, how many of us are still using the same computers and software that we were using 10 years ago? But you have to ensure that those calls you recorded yesterday can still be retrieved and played in the year 2031. So what you need here is a future-proof solution. And our approach is to store data in open standard formats. And we also built our continuity replay application on industry standards as well to ensure that both the data and the application are still going to be accessible well into the future. The overarching philosophy behind our approach is that it's your data, not ours. And even if your recording vendor were to completely disappear, you're still entitled to have access to your data for as long as you need it. So we recently engaged in a project for a Canadian life insurance company, and they were decommissioning 2 call recording systems containing about 50 million recordings stored in EMC Centera. Their objective is to maintain compliance with their 10-year retention requirement and completely decommission the old call recording systems. Here, Wilmac's strategy includes extracting all the files from Centera, converting them into the open standard format, and building a single continuity replay system to provide search and replay access to both repositories. One of the key deliverables in a project like this is maintaining all of the metadata from the original systems, and Wilmac's able to accomplish this with no loss of information.
Excuse me, I'm muted. Oh my gosh. So,
Only live.
man, it's only been 17 minutes. Yikes. Okay, so we are now halfway through our discussion questions. So I just want you to stick with us, wake up, wipe the spit off your mouth. We're good. All right, moving into question 4. Suppose a global firm has acquired multiple companies over the years. They have the need to decommission multiple voice recording platforms. Is there a way to consolidate into one search and replay solution?
We are seeing a lot of this lately. For starters, our engineers have extracted and converted voice files from dozens of different systems, all with different proprietary formats. Our continuity replay application supports an unlimited number of data sets. So once we have it converted to an open standard format, we can access all of them through a single continuity replay application. And that enables you to consolidate all your legacy data and decommission those old systems. So here's an example of a professional services firm that's consolidating 3 companies through mergers and acquisitions. The companies are located not only in different cities, but they're on different continents. They need to bring the data together, but they also have to comply with local regulations that require client identifiable data, or CID, remaining stored in the country of origin. So here we're faced with 3 systems from 3 different vendors. The project plan includes converting the audio files from the 3 systems into a common open standard format and storing it in the country of origin. We were able to build a single instance of continuity replay, which can access those 3 audio repositories, even though they're in different locations, and bring it all together through a single user interface. So we've combined these systems into one while simultaneously maintaining compliance with CID regulations. As we were getting started initiating this project, the customer informed us of the acquisition of 2 additional companies, and they needed to expand the scope of the project. Well, as it turns out, this is really no problem since continuity replay has unlimited scalability, and we're able to add in additional audio repositories to an existing application at any time.
Wow, so it's obvious that being able to put your data and your recordings all in one place saves major companies like the one you just talked about a lot of headaches. It can be a huge maze to navigate, so working with the right call recording company is such a critical decision. All right, we'll move into discussion question 5 now. Now, an organization's voice recording platform is going to be incorporated into their cloud contact center solution. It doesn't have the feature and functionality of the old voice recording platform. How can Wilmac help?
Yeah, one of the key challenges with data migration is always preventing data loss. Each individual audio recording usually has a lot of fields of metadata associated with it, from the more basic things like the date and time of the call, But other important things like duration, extension number, perhaps the name of the agent who took the call, and sometimes even details about the caller. It might also include the retention requirement of the recording and if the recording has been placed in litigation hold. All this information is critical to locating that desired call out of the millions of others and to ensuring that your call is held securely for as long as it's required. So with continuity replay, we can ensure that 100% of your data is carried forward so you get the same search and replay functionality, and all retention and litigation hold information is retained and carried forward to the new continuity replay system.
All right, with that answer, we are going to move into question 6, which is our final discussion question. Now, I just want to remind our audience again to record your questions in the chat because we'll be answering them very, very soon. So question 6, Mark. Suppose a regulated company has a 10-year retention period. Does Wilmac have a retention feature that will purge the data appropriately?
And absolutely, yes, we do. Any regulated organization has to have a set retention period that meets your regulatory requirements. And that can sometimes even vary from one department to another within your organization. So we built continuity replay to maintain retention policies on a per call basis and then be able to automatically purge those recordings permanently once that retention requirement has been satisfied. Now, also, a related requirement with that is to be able to override that automatic purging on certain recordings. And this feature is commonly referred to as litigation hold. Continuity replay supports litigation hold on a per call basis so we can ensure that you have full control over how long your recordings are retained with as little manual intervention as possible.
Awesome, thanks, Mark. I know we went through that pretty fast and it's a lot of information to take in, and before I want to move into our audience Q&A session, I have one more poll question for our attendees. So we ended on the topic of retention because it's such a critical thing to be on top of and to understand in our industry. So the poll question is, what is your organization's policy on retention? So I am going to launch that right now, and we really would appreciate your input. And the options are 3 years or less, 3 to 8 years, 8 years or more, or not applicable. I'll give you guys another 20 seconds to answer. We definitely need a Jeopardy track to go in the background. Okay, just a few more seconds. And good. All right. Thank you guys to those who answered for really helping us and giving us a lot of good information. So, like I said before, we threw a lot of information at you, but our main goal was to portray Wilmac's capabilities in the voice management space. So we've had decades of experience selling solutions and services that meet the needs that we talked about and address the pain points from the questions that we answered. So our knowledge and our awareness has grown substantially over time. Now, our ultimate goal is to solve your unique voice management and call recording needs, and we promise to guide you through that process with our consultative support. So I'm now going to open up the chat to any questions from the audience. Feel free to add your questions into the chat now if you have any. And if we're unable to get to your question, like I mentioned before, we'll make sure to follow up with you individually. Okay. All right, so let's start with this question mark. How do you provide metadata? Is it just the voice or associated call metadata with it?
Yeah, the metadata is oftentimes as important as the voice. You know, once you convert all those voice files, you need a way to find what you're looking for. So we absolutely capture metadata. Every call recording system does store it a little bit differently, sometimes in databases, sometimes in companion files to the audio files, but we understand those formats and we pull 100% of the data fields out of the old call recording system, and we normalize that data into a format that can be either imported into continuity replay or carried forward into another system of your choice, or just held as a record of all those recordings.
Beautiful. Okay, guys, waiting for your questions. Let's go. Waiting for them. All right, here's another one. Is Wilmac integrating with the voice recording platform, or are you just connecting to something else?
Yeah, I'm glad that question came up, because it does come up with a lot of our customers as a area of concern. If another vendor touches that call recording system or tries to integrate with it and it's not supported by the current vendor, you may have issues with a maintenance contract becoming voided, or things like that. So we do hear that quite a bit. The good news is we never touch that call recording system. We don't integrate to it. We don't even log into it. All we look at is the data in the system, the metadata and the voice files. And the first order of business is to make copies of that. We work off copies, not off the production data, so that we're never really touching that call recording system. There's no potential for us to change anything in it or to affect current support contracts.
Okay. All right, here's another one. How is continuity replay deployed? Can you deploy in the cloud, or can you work with AWS?
Yeah, there's a variety of ways we can deploy it. It's a pretty straightforward browser-based application. We can deploy it on premise, either physical or virtualized servers. Virtualization is probably the more common of the two. We can deploy it in private clouds, AWS being a great example of that, or we can even host it for you. So talk to us about what your unique needs are, and we've got options for you.
Great. All right, here is another one for you, Mark. Does the conversion process affect file size? We're considering continuity replay to replace a legacy NICE Perform system, approximately 2 terabytes worth of audio. How much storage will we need for the converted audio?
Well, my gut feeling on that one is to say, well, it depends. In practice, we find that storage sizes do tend to expand when we convert them, but it really does depend. What file format or compression algorithm is being used on the current system. And although we do have some standards we use when we convert to an open standard, there's options there as well. So depending on what option you choose and what your current system has, it could stay the same, it could grow larger, it could even shrink in some cases. But our experience is that in most cases it will increase a little, not dramatically, but maybe in the order of 30 to 40%.
Great. Thank you for that clarification, Mark. Okay, let's see. Next question. Does continuity replay require local storage for the converted audio, or can we use remote storage?
Yeah, so again, this is one where we have some flexible options for you. A lot of our customers are regulated agencies that need to keep everything on premise, so we do a lot of work with storing in local data centers, either in NAS or SAN type environments, but we also have a lot who have chosen to move that up to the cloud. I mentioned one of our case studies that moved a very large volume of audio up into cloud storage. So S3, an example of one that we work with, Azure, another one. So we have options for you. We can talk to you about your specific needs and find a solution for you.
Gotcha. So here is a question. What format do you store your data in?
Well, we use open standard for the audio, typically WAV files with various encoding options available for you. And the metadata comes out first into a standard CSV, which most organizations can use to import into other systems or whatever you want. In the case of continuity replay, we use a Microsoft SQL database, and we just import that same CSV file that we exported out of the same or out of your old system, and we provide that to you in addition to the continuity replay SQL database as well.
Gotcha. It's a good question. So another question from our audience. What are some of the risks associated with your programs?
Really no risks that we've run into. You know, we've covered off on a lot of those risks in the architecture of our product. You know, we can work with data in secure environments. We've done that a lot for regulated agencies. Because we use open standard formats, there's really no risk to having to convert again, or you know, if someday those formats become obsolete. So by keeping everything open and in industry standards, we're able to reduce pretty much any risk that comes up and work within secure environments as well. So that gives us the flexibility to answer those challenges.
Gotcha. Okay. Still checking the chat. All right, here's another one. Now we have multiple legacy call recording systems that are also different vendors. So do we need a separate continuity replay instance for each individual vendor system?
No, you don't need separate instances. We can provide a single interface that'll connect to multiple converted audio repositories through one UI. That said, you have flexible options here as well. Some of our customers have elected to use a separate continuity instance from different systems, probably most commonly if those are in different regions and they don't want to be connecting from region to region. So we can do it either way. We can either do independent instances or we can do a single instance connecting to multiple repositories.
Awesome. All right, we'll go for a couple more questions. So if you guys haven't put in your questions in the question section or the chat section, please do so now. All right, here's a question. What vendors can you work with?
What vendors? Well, there's a list of over 30 vendors that we have experience in converting proprietary audio from. And I don't think we have a list to put up on the screen, but I urge you to reach out to us with what your specific vendors are. And I'm fairly confident that what you got is on that list. You know, that list spans the gamut from some very old systems to some very new systems and everything in between.
Gotcha. Okay, and here is another question from our audience. Is the uploading continuous over time or done momentarily?
Uploading to a cloud system, I assume is what you're referring to there. If I misunderstood, please restate your question. But the answer is we do it all in one data transfer, if you will, because what we're talking about with legacy extraction is decommissioned systems. We're going to convert all of the data, or at least the subset of the data that you need to keep, and transfer that up into your new storage location in one operation. You know, we're continuity automated is out of the scope of today's webinar, but I will make a point of saying for systems that remain in production, that is what continuity automated is for, and that system works on a continual basis or a continuous basis.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm not seeing anything else in the chat right now. If you guys have a question, now is your chance to put it in. Thank you, Mark, for your answers on that. Very insightful. I'm hoping our attendees are getting a lot of information out of this today.
I hope so too.
Okay, here is another question. Can we pull from EMC storage?
Yes, we can. EMC, an older storage network technology, used a very unique way to store its audio files. Highly secure, of course, but we do have the tools to extract audio files out of EMC Centera, and we've done that on a number of projects.
Gotcha. Okay, here's another one. How much space do you have on the cloud?
Well, the cloud's the cloud. There's an unlimited number of space out there, depending on the cloud provider. If you're talking about your private cloud, that would be the amount of storage that you purchase from your vendor. If you're talking about maybe a cloud solution that we provide for you, we can provide as much storage as you need.
Great. Okay, so that's everything that I see from our audience. Again, I will give about 15 more seconds for you to put in your question, and then we will wrap up. Like I mentioned before, our essay series, this webinar was the final installment, so make sure to be on the lookout on our Wilmac website for, first of all, the on-demand webinar for the recording and to read the essays. for some context. And then, like I mentioned at the beginning, the continuity automated solution will be touched on in a future webinar. So make sure to be on the lookout for that. Okay, I think we're all set then. All right, we'll move into our conclusion. So that's all the time we have for today, even though you guys have 25 minutes left of the hour. We understand though that this is a really dense subject, so I'll give you that time to maybe take a brain break, get another cup of coffee, or even take a quick nap, whatever floats your boat. So I wanted to say thank you all for joining us today for Wilmac's Guide to Legacy Voice Archive Management. Mark, do you have anything that you want to add before we close?
No, I'll just say thank you all for attending. Glad to have you and hope you found this to be helpful, and reach out to us if we can provide any more clarity.
Definitely. If you guys see on the PowerPoint, my contact information is on there. So my door, my email is always wide open. So please feel free to reach out, visit our website. We've got a lot of great content on there. And this is just another reminder to please answer the quick survey that will pop up on the screen after you leave the webinar. Apologies, fumbling over my words. So if we didn't answer your question today, we'll make sure to reach out to you individually. So thank you again and have a great rest of your day. See you guys.
Thanks, everybody.